Hi, it's Jeff Chalmers here from discoverdouble-bass.com, which is the home of online courses, lessons and interviews to learn to play the double bass. And I am joined today by a wonderful musician, a jazz bass player who's renowned for his virtuosic technique and tasteful lines. And he's somebody who, if you don't know his music, I would absolutely encourage you to go and check it out. It's the wonderful Yuri Golubev. Welcome, Yuri. It's lovely to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Well, you've been here joining us in Leeds, performing. We've been filming you play some beautiful music, and also we've been chatting a little bit about double bass techniques. But we were taken by your instrument and the fact that you've only had this double bass for a couple of days. So maybe we could have a discussion about instrument setup and what you look for in a bass. And let's start off by hearing about the story behind this beautiful double bass.
This lovely instrument was just made by Budapest luthier Tibor Tabany. And this is the fourth instrument I've been importing from him, and three of them, including this one, are for students of mine. In order to provide them with a quality instrument at an affordable price that is easy to play, which is very important. And that's how we come up to the setup question. Well, my normal setup, it's not exactly this on this particular instrument, but quite close. My normal setup is quite extreme. And to be perfectly honest, I insist on this setup, and it's really hard to convince any bass maker to do it this way. So what I prefer to do is what I call the negative slope.
Okay.
So when the fingerboard vertically is completely straight and even goes down rather than like this. So if you want to have a low action, in my opinion, in my experience, you should have no slope under G and under D, only under E.
So describe to me the slope again.
So the slope, usually the fingerboard is shaped a little bit like this.
So it goes higher as you reach into thumb position.
So let's say it's, it goes a little bit like this here. Yes. So the shape would be like this, because the idea is that you play and there should be enough space for the string to vibrate.
Yes.
But to me,
because the string is vibrating in the middle of the string length.
But to me, this is a dogma, because if we put finger here, the middle would be here. If we put it here, the middle would be there, and then it will buzz.
Okay.
So if you want no buzzes, it has to be straighter and even maybe a little bit going in this direction.
Sure.
Yeah, obviously round like this.
So it's not flatter than a normal fingerboard.
It is pretty flat. Let's say so. It's not flat like this. It's curvy in this direction, and it's flat.
Understood.
Vertically.
Yes, but you've got the regular profile. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and I personally do not see any advantages in high action. Because even, some people say that you'd lose out on the sound, like on the volume. You will, not significantly.
So let's say this bass is...
I don't hear any problems with the volume,
And it's very well set up.
So, but this one is for a classical student of mine, so it's not set up exactly as I say. It's more, for classical playing, so there is a little bit of a slope.
So, do you have a little bit more clearance on the E?
The E, it does have to go like this.
So there's a slight. It's not like a Romberg bevel where it's quite sharp. It's just a subtle carving away of.
Yeah,
so there's a little bit more space under the E string.
We do not really use very much this string like here.
Yes.
We do not use it at all here. So since it's a really thick string. It does take quite a lot of space to vibrate, so we need to try and provide the space by actually doing this.
A gentle
slope.
scoop.
Which is, in my opinion, useless under G. It just creates buzzes. So it's kind of a little bit of a diversity in the approach between different strings.
Interesting. So and in terms of the nut, I take it you're going as low as you can at the nut as well. Yeah, and then at the bridge, what kind of string heights do you have a target in mind?
It's a hard question because it also depends on the instrument.
Absolutely.
on the tension of the instrument and so on.
String set as well sometimes.
Yeah, yes. I'm not so sure. Yeah, also the strings, they can be very different. I'm not so sure what it is now here. I would imagine it's probably like 2.5 maybe millimeters.
It's pretty low, yeah.
Yeah, maybe 3
Nice.
at the most, and here
On the
it's
G, so
maybe
that's on
like
the G,
6.
and it's
Yeah.
maybe around 3 on the G from the underside of the
like
string.
3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, or something like this.
Sure.
I never care to properly measure it. It's just a question of feeling, how you feel it.
Well, that bass is very comfortable to play. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah,
And it has a wonderful sound as well.
I always think that the double bass is already a physically challenging instrument, and there is not much point in making it even more challenging physically. And I can tell you, when I used to work in the orchestra for many years, I didn't have my strings much higher.
Yes.
I did have them a little bit higher, maybe like 5 or 6 mil, but
Yeah.
not really more. That was sufficient. If you do not have this massive slope.
Yeah, so essentially the classical setup tends to be slightly higher,
Yeah.
the jazz
Yes.
slightly lower, and I think...
Yeah, obviously in classical, when you bow, you make the string vibrate,
wider
oscillate much
oscillation.
wider. Yeah, so you do need some space, especially when you need to not press, but apply some weight and play some Shostakovich symphonies or
Sure, yeah,
whatever,
Bruckner
Brahms.
or... Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about string length? Let's quickly run through some of the dimensions.
I think this one is like 104 probably, or
nice.
103.5. Never measured it, but it's pretty standard.
Yeah, so kind of around the 41.5 sort of standard benchmark, maybe slightly fractionally smaller, but you're not too
the
worried about
body of
that?
this bass is pretty small, but
It's. I'd say it seems like a fairly regular 3/4 though. It's not for people watching at home. It's not a reduced size instrument, is it? It's just.
No.
It's not overly big, but it seems pretty standard. It's beautifully made. And okay, so let's talk about strings then. So you've got quite an unusual setup.
So the strings on this instrument aren't those that I would normally use in jazz because it's for my classical students. So originally I had put on this one all 4 Pyrastro flat chrome steel.
Okay.
And then I realized that A and E weren't working at all on this specific bass. So I put the D'Addario Helicore Hybrid light tension, A and E, and I kept the Pyrastro, and then I'll tell her if she wants to change also G and D to D'Addario, maybe. But I myself, I would use actually either, that's quite an unusual choice, I'm afraid, D'Addario Pizzicato light gauge, or Tomastic Spiracore light tension.
So those two
For
sets.
jazz, yeah,
tend to be-
either or. Also depending on the instrument. Like the instrument that is featured in this Two Chevrons Apart
Yes.
album, which is another Hungarian, unfortunately anonymous. I have no idea who made it. It's also a nice small pear-shaped bass, and the strings were D'Addario Pizzicato.
And that's right. Okay, and they were the light gauge.
Yeah.
D'Addario
Yeah.
Pizzicato. They're a great set. They are a great set. They're really nice, and I've really enjoyed using those. I got a set recently. Danny Zeman, one of the tutors at Discover Double Bass, he uses those with an Olive G. So he kind of has a slightly different kind of setup, but.
But I think it also depends on the instrument, what fits, and on the player, what sort of sound you hear in your mind, what sort of feeling you want to have under your fingers. So I may say, okay, yeah, I prefer it like this, but it's not that I would make students, put these specific strings. I have a student at the Royal Welsh who uses, what are the strings? They're made in Wales.
Innovation?
Yes, correct. On his instrument, they sound great. For sort of traditional jazz, like, just like swing and so on, but they sound amazing.
That's the thing. It's all about the double bass and the setup and the player. It's also individual, isn't it? And it does take time to experiment with this stuff.
Yeah, and then of course you have to experiment a little bit with the position of the sound post, position of the bridge. And usually the bridge in theory has to match these signs, like they have to come to the middle of the leg, but often it sounds better when it's lower. Or maybe in some basses when it's higher. So you have to experiment a little bit and see what works better for the specific instrument.
I was really impressed with how comfortable you felt playing a new instrument. I mean, do you generally go for a D neck instrument or E flat? I mean, do you care?
That's a great question. I absolutely don't. Absolutely don't care. And to me, you know, I've seen some technical riders of people like those that do not travel with the bases, like only a D, whatever. It's like, why? Does it matter? It takes literally a couple of minutes to get used to understand, to sort of reset your mind to, you know, wherever everything is. Like that German bass I have at home. I don't know if it's D or E flat, but this G is pretty much there.
Yeah.
It takes me a couple of minutes, and then you put yourself on a different, you know, different rail tracks, and also that bass, it's much. I'm not so sure if it's like 106 or something like this. So it's all a bit wider, but it just, yeah, you just switch it.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people, when they see a player with as incredible, as refined technique as yourself, who can really play, you know, at a, you know, super fast tempos and what have you, they're thinking that you're playing some kind of miniature bass or something, you know, and actually you're playing a larger than average, and that's certainly an average size bass. You know, there's no kind of magic tricks or anything. It's just all about great technique and
I think it's set up.
Yeah, cool.
To make it quite, you know, easy to play physically.
I think that's the key thing when people are looking for an instrument. Well set up, a good set of strings, they're the kind of key things really that will help you on your journey. And as you say, it can really hold you back as a student if you're playing on something that's uncomfortable to play.
Yeah, and also I think it's very important not to fall into any kind of dogmas, you know, like, oh, it has to be this way. There isn't such a thing as has to.
Yeah.
Experiment, try. If you have some intuition, some insight, whatever, try it. Maybe you're right. Maybe, you know, 100 people wouldn't be doing like this, and they'd tell you off, but actually it works for you.
And lastly,
so, great.
Just to finish off, because it's a question in my mind, you mentioned the pear-shaped bass.
Yeah.
You know, is that an instrument you still have? Is that one
I just sold it. I used to...
Sounds amazing on that recording.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've done many recordings with that bass, and I've had it for like maybe 5 years.
Did you find any difference in terms of it, in terms of the different shape? It's one of the basses that I haven't really played a pear-shaped bass, I don't think.
In handling it.
Oh, yes,
so
yeah.
That is maybe the main trick. So how I was doing it,
yeah.
I was taking it here, but without applying the force in this direction, because you really risk. So it's like just touching it gently here, you know, but not really
not pulling it away from the top away.
Yeah, and of course, in the beginning, it feels like a little bit strange, but you get used.
Yeah, a bass is a bass, and I think that's one of the great things about our instrument is that it can help us on our journey to express ourselves, all these wonderful options that are out there, and it's an exciting thing. So, Yuri, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of this wonderful knowledge and for your wonderful playing as well. I think we're going to hear a clip of you play this bass now. If you want to learn more about Yuri, where can people find you?
Well, people can, they're very welcome to visit my website, which is yurigolubev.com. There is also a Wikipedia page, and I do this video tutorials on YouTube with explaining some basics. As I saw that sometimes this knowledge is a little bit missing in the community of young aspiring bass players. So I felt sort of on a mission, you know, filling this gap. Well, as far as live performances now, it's really hard to say because in the current situation, like our schedules have been wiped out, and I guess all this year, all this concert season is a write-off, and maybe even the next one. So we just should hope for the best.
Absolutely. It's a really difficult time at the moment. It's September 2020 that we're filming this in the UK, and yeah, it's a very challenging time for artists. So I very much appreciate you coming over and joining us today, Yuri. It's been a real joy, and I think what people want is they want to hear you play. So thank you so much for watching, and enjoy this performance from the great Yuri Golubev.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thanks for watching.